It's time for Health Futures with Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and welcome. It's Friday, May the 19th, and it is just zooming along. It's hard to believe we're already getting ready to get into the dog days of the summer. If you're just tuning into the show for the very, very first time, our show, Health Futures, is exactly as the name says. It is a show about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life into the future. And taking stock in you is really giving you the ability to make sure that you have, and if you don't have, you have access to the appropriate resources to be able to do so. We've been bringing you this show now for over 4 years. And how do we do it? We bring extraordinary guests to the show. And if you want to catch up on some of the shows that we have been bringing to you, go to our website at cypresshomecare.com, click on the media button, and the drop-down arrow will give you the radio show, and you can listen to this show when we're done, and you can listen to about 160 others. So I'm going to cut right to it, okay? We're here today talking about caregivers. My family owns a home care agency. We are in our 24th year. And what do? We enable our older adult population to be able to stay at home. We know 92% of older adults, and I'm talking about those people 65 and older, want to age in place. And why shouldn't they if they can? Not everybody can, but if you can age in place, Cypress HomeCare Solutions or other employer-based home care companies can assist you to be able to do so. So we have approximately 200 caregivers on our roster, and I'm making an appeal, like I often do, is we're looking for good caregivers. And what do I mean by good? We're looking for people that are kindred spirits, people that want to give, make a difference in somebody's life. And if you happen to be that person or you know of somebody, please have them reach out to us at Cypress Home Care Solutions. They can call us at 602-264-8009. We're looking for people always. So I want to get right to the show. Since we're talking about caregivers, I want to give you a stat that not many people realize. There are 4 types of caregivers, and I'll bet you not everybody knew that. There are those that have been caregivers. There are those that are currently caregivers. There are those that will be caregivers. And guess what? There will be people that need caregivers. And today is a show that I want to concentrate talking about caregivers. So I brought a special guest to the show. And this guest, her name is Cindy Findley. And Cindy is with the Arizona Caregiver Coalition. And she is the executive director, making a difference in many people's lives here in our community in our state known as Arizona. Welcome to the show, Cindy.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate it. Thank God it's Friday. I am so eager for the weekend. You know, you said something interesting about aging in place and staying at home and how Cypress helps that. I just want to tell you that studies have shown that an influential factor in a caregiver's decision to place a relative in a long-term care facility is the family caregiver's own physical health. This is so important.
It is. It is. I want to introduce our next guest, too, just real quick before we jump into it. She is our shining star at Cypress Home Care Solutions and has enabled us to deliver care to a much-needed population base that's continuing to grow. And her name is Michelle Toft. She is our Director of Memory Care Programming. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Good to be here again.
Michelle has been in the aging community for over 20 years, specifically in the dementia area. She's got her master's in social work, her master's in education. And I don't know if you knew this, Cindy, about a year and a half ago, we incorporated a whole new program helping those individuals that are in those families that are struggling with the disease, dementia, and Alzheimer's that comes along with that. So we have some incredible programming to do that, and I want you to talk a little bit about that as we get into the show. But I do want to share a fact, Cindy, and you opened up the door. 63% of those individuals, and I'm talking about couples caring for one another, those that are 65 and older, 63% of the time, the caregiver predeceases the care recipient. And that is scary. And part of that, Cindy, is the fact that this generation, the greatest generation primarily that we're caring for, took the oath of sickness and health when they got married, literally. And they don't want the help, but they need it. And they don't realize that there are resources out there like Cypress and like Arizona Caregiver Coalition. So I want you to talk a little bit about what you guys do, because you are that resource, that connector to help those families understand this concept. You ready? Respite. And not everyone understands what respite is, but I want to share with our listening audience, it is the ability to recharge your batteries. So if you are that primary caregiver, if you're the one that is working every single day for your partner so that they can stay home alone, whether you think you need it or not, you do need it. You need relief. You need the ability to take care of yourself, recharge your batteries so you can be a better caregiver for your loved one.
I agree, Bob. That is so important. You mentioned caregiving and people being caregivers. Well, let me tell you, the word caregiver is not a welcome addition to anyone's resume. Let me give you an example of Patsy. Patsy is a client of the Arizona Caregiver Coalition. And when I was talking to her, I said, tell me about yourself. She said, well, I'm a mother, a grandmother, and a wife. And I said, and you also take care of your husband, Hal, right? So you're a caregiver. And she said, no, I'm not a caregiver, but I take care of Hal. No one wants to call themselves a caregiver because a caregiver is a hero and people are afraid to take that on. But they are heroes and they need to take a break.
There are unsung heroes. They're the ones that make the ultimate sacrifice. You know, and I will tell you, it's statistics, and I got a bunch of them here, but statistics are daunting. What about 60% of the caregivers out there are females? And there are an enormous amount of females that are single moms that are raising children, and they're in that sandwich generation caring for their parent and holding down a job. And I will tell you, my guest from 3 weeks ago, he was talking about how he admires some of these women that are super women, that they're able to work all day, come home, get dinner on the table, help their children with their homework, help care for a aging parent, go to bed and do it all over again the next day. It's daunting, and it is tireless, and it is really, you know, in my mind, these are our true unsung heroes that make that sacrifice.
I agree. And it's financially expensive, too. I mean, most families now are spending up to $6,000 of their own money to help with their care recipient. Also, if a woman leaves the workforce in her early 50s, she now has lost $300,000. So the women are also economically disadvantaged for caregivers. But let's go back to respite. What we do at the Arizona Caregiver Coalition is that we administer the Lifespan Respite Program, which gives qualified family caregivers a $300 respite rebate every 90 days.
Talk a little bit about that. How do you qualify? How do you make that application? Who do I call? Because there are people listening right now that could benefit from this great program. If I remember correctly, I think it was the Mathers group that came up with it out of Chicago originally, and it is that was like 15 years ago, and it is really, it's continuing to grow, and there's more and more money that has been added to it over the years.
Exactly. Well, it's to the state's advantage to have the caregivers take a break, because right now we have 804,000 caregivers in the state. These are unpaid family caregivers. They're saving the state of Arizona $9 billion. And as you were saying, Bob...
Not $9 billion with a B.
Yeah, that's with a B.
Wow.
Family caregivers are saving $9 billion. So the state wants to keep them healthy, because if the caregiver gets sick, the care recipient is also going to get sick.
Well, not only are they going to get sick, but I will tell you that the least costly place to provide care for an individual is in the home. You know, you look at assisted living, independent living, group homes, you look at skilled nursing, they put an enormous stress on our economic existence as a state as well as the federal government. So why not be able to care for them at home? And the greatest thing is that Cypress HomeCare, and I will tell you, Michelle can tell you, because she's a direct care workforce trainer, we do our state's All-Tex work, which is Medicaid. And it's home and community-based service work. And each of our clients gets allocated a certain amount of hours each week, because this is where they will be able to age successfully in place for the least possible cost. We got a little music going in our ears here, so it's hard to believe we're down one segment. Cindy, it flies by. Michelle's a veteran. She's been on the show several times. So we're going to pick it up in just a few minutes here. We're going to take a commercial break. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I got Cindy Findley from the Arizona Caregiver Coalition. She's the executive director here on the show with me. And I got Michelle Toft, our director of memory care programming. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. We're on segment number 2. And if you're just tuning in, I've got Cindy Findley. She is the executive director for the Arizona Caregiver Coalition here in the studio. And I got Michelle Toft, who is our director of memory care programming at Cypress HomeCare Solutions. And if you missed the first segment, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button. You'll hit a drop down and you'll see radio show. You'll be able to catch this first segment that you missed, and you'll be able to catch about 160 others that we've been bringing to you for the last 4 years. So just getting back to our first segment, Cindy, we're talking about respite and we're talking about caregiving. And I want to give some statistics here. And AARP did a new survey. They found that 54% of residents that are 45 and over have recently provided care to an older adult. The survey released as part of the November National Family Caregiving Month, and it's something that we promote at Cypress, and we talk about it here on the radio show, recognizes the important role of the caregivers playing in helping relatives or close friends with chronic, disabling, or a serious health problem to be able to remain in home as long as they can. Now, Dana Marie Kennedy, who is our state chapter director for AARP, she says the typical caregiver in Arizona is a 61-year-old woman who is married, has a college degree, and has a household income of at least $30,000. In many instances, family caregivers are also taking care of younger family members or children under the age of 18 and that are living with them. So I will tell you that this is a real problem, and it's one that a lot of people don't either realize, as you said, Cindy, that they're caregivers, and a lot of people don't realize that there are resources like the Arizona Caregiver Coalition. So I think you being here is perfect and really talking about what the coalition does.
Thanks, Bob. Well, we also have a caregiver resource line, so caregivers can call, and we've got trained volunteers that will talk to them about all of the different resources the state of Arizona has. A typical call is, I need a wheelchair. Where would I find a wheelchair? How do I connect with Meals on Wheels? Also, I'm looking for in-home care. Who do I call? What are the things that I need to ask for? So we provide indirect services for the state of Arizona.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I mean, and it's important for us to know how to get a hold of you. How do we find Arizona Caregiver Coalition? I know you got a website.
Yep. azcaregiver.org.
That's pretty easy. Let me repeat that. azcaregiver.org. Or you can call, is that 888 number the number?
That's it, 888-737-7400. 94.
And there'll be somebody on that line. Are you guys like 8 to 5 or are you 24/7?
Our volunteers are there from 9 to 3,
9
but
to
after that, we've got an answering service, and live people will take your calls and concerns.
Well, again, 888-737-7494. And, you know, it's really something that we don't talk enough about, caregivers. And, you know, while we employ paid caregivers here at Cypress Home Care Solutions, there are other sources out there that are available, and this respite program is one of the secrets that a lot of people don't know about. And, you know, if you're needing some assistance and you're listening in today and you've got an older adult, parent, uncle, aunt, grandparent, or you know of a neighbor that might benefit from this, call this number at 888-737-7494.
And, Bob, you know, I think there's often a misconception about when people should use respite. So often they think that they should only use it if they have a doctor's appointment to go to, or if the person is too ill to take with them to the grocery store. So, Cindy, what are times that you see families reaching out to you and things that they want to do with that respite time?
Well, respite is taking a break. So anytime that you can take a rest is respite. You can go next door and take a nap. You can go to your niece's wedding, go to church, go get a manicure or a pedicure, or for a man, he can go play golf or get his hair trimmed. It's time away from your care recipient, and that is so important. You're never emotionally away, but sometimes, well, actually, the fact that you're physically away is a form of recharging.
That's great. You know, I working with folks who have dementia and families who have dementia, I so often see these caregivers who just take on more and more and more. And every little bit that they take on, they don't feel until suddenly there's a catastrophe and they end up in the hospital because they've had an accident or they've had a stroke or they haven't taken care of their own medical needs. And so those are the folks that we talk about, this getting rest ahead of time. And like you said, recharging that battery. I say often, you can't fill someone else's cup if your cup is empty.
That is so true, Michelle. That's so poignantly said. I mean, you can't fill up someone else's cup if your cup is empty. And really, I mean, it is so intense being that caregiver, both physically and emotionally. And that's why 63% pass before their care recipient. You know, a great example, and a lot of people don't know this, but Christopher Reeves is a great example. You know, how did Dana Reeves pass less than a year afterwards when she never smoked cigarettes? How did she get lung cancer? I mean, we're learning so much about what stress does to one's body. And I really believe that that life that she lived those many years with him being a quadriplegic really took its toll on her. It really is true. So I want to give some other facts here. A lot of people don't realize, but, you know, we got about 360 million people that live in this country. 65 million Americans care for their aging or disabled loved one on a yearly basis. 65 million. And then another fact is that their value of the care is estimated about $375 billion if you had to pay those people. Family caregivers provide a staggering 90% of the long-term care that is going on out there in America right now today. And nearly half of the working caregivers report that caregiver expenses have depleted most, if not all, of their savings. That's why I really think what you guys have created is a great resource. And that's one of the things we pride ourselves at Cypress. You know, when I came over to Cypress 14 years ago, I rebranded Cypress with the name Cypress HomeCare Solutions. And I love the fact that you are as much a solution-oriented person as we are. And, you know, we're constantly looking for solutions for those people that call that need assistance. And, you know, Michelle knows this. I talk about it in the office. When people call our office, they're not calling to say hello. They're calling because they need help. And we have to be responding to them. And in my office, our schedulers that answer the call, because that's the way we work at Cypress, if we're able to bring a client aboard, guess who is owning that client? That one scheduler that was there on the line with that person when they needed help the most. Because let me tell you something, that's the connection that happens. They need help, they need resources, and making that call is the first step. So you as our listening audience, if you find yourself in that caregiving role or you know someone that's in that caregiving role, feel free to call the Arizona Caregiver Coalition at 888-737-7494 or call Cypress at 602-264-8009. It's halftime here at Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. We're about to ready to take a break. You're listening to Health Futures, and we're talking caregiving. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. We're just coming back from our halftime break, and our engineer, Wes, brought us in with the little Doobie Brothers. What a great way to get a Friday afternoon going, getting ready for the weekend. Thank you, Wes. Turn it up a little bit. There you go. All right. Well, we're talking about caregiving, and caregiving is what we're talking about, and specifically we're talking to the Arizona Caregiver Coalition. I've got Cindy Findley. She's the executive director, and I want to really talk about this coalition. Cindy, do you know how long it's been since it's been in place?
The coalition's about 10 years old. We've been a nonprofit for a couple of years now, and the Department of Economic Security is graciously housing us.
Well, I got to tell you, I was there when it first began, and your leader, who unfortunately is no longer with us, and it's very sad because the program really has his footprint all over it. David Best was a caregiver, and certainly was one that appreciates the work that is being done every day tirelessly by these unsung heroes, and saw this need and really championed this for our state. One man created this. David Best, rest in peace. You're awesome, dude, and you've really created a great resource for us here in our state in Arizona. Cindy, you have some big shoes to fill.
Oh, I do. Every day I walk into the office, I'm a little overwhelmed, and he inspires me.
You probably feel his spirit with you.
I do. I walk by his office and stand there for a minute.
Yeah, well, you know, it was an incredible service a couple months ago, and I'm touched by that service, just the outpouring of love and affection that the community brought. I mean, everybody stepped up for that, and it was really nice. It was a nice tribute. But let's talk about the Arizona Caregiver Coalition. You talked about this respite program, and this respite program is available to pretty much anybody, unless you're on a federally funded or state-funded program, right?
Exactly. If you're already receiving federal respite, such as that through the Veterans Aid and Attendance or the Arizona Long-Term Care System, sadly, you're ineligible for this, but just about everyone else is. We're looking for family caregivers who live full-time with their care recipient.
I love it. I love it because you know what? These are the people that are taking and making the biggest risk. They're giving up their life for their loved one. And the fact of the matter is that money is being used to help, whether it be provision services like Cypress, it's helping those that are provisioning services like medical equipment, pharmacy drugs that they need. I mean, it's there to help them, and it's the application is, as you shared with me, pretty easy.
It is. Just give us a call at 888-737-7494, and one of our volunteers will ask you a few questions. We're going to send you an application. You'll send it back. We can have the entire process done in 5 working days.
5 working days. And it's available every, how many days, this $300?
Every 90 days, a family caregiver is eligible for $300 as a respite rebate. Now, here's the catch. You have to pay first, right. And like in any rebate, we're going to reimburse you for the $300 that you spent.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. So you can be eligible up to $1,200 a year.
Absolutely.
That's that new math. I'm pretty good at it, aren't I? But I will tell you also, I mentioned Dana Marie Kennedy. She's a state leader for AARP, and she and I were down at the legislature back about 90 days ago. We were petitioning the Ways and Means Committee of the legislature to consider a family caregiver tax credit for exactly the same type of reasons. So, although it didn't make it this legislative period, and I think the legislative session just closed last week or the week before, but we're hoping that that thing can be resurrected. We also have a federal respite, or should I say family caregiver credit, that is being brought to the lawmakers in Washington, D.C., and that's being spearheaded by Senator Joni Ernst out of Iowa. And there's a congressperson, I think it's in New York or Virginia, that is co-sponsoring that bill. So that's for a $25,000 family caregiver tax credit. So this is something that we have to really be cognizant of as a community, as in a country. Family caregiving is something that is here to stay. I shared with you at the top of the show that we have 4 types of caregivers. We're all going to be around it one way or another. And we're an aging society, and we need to be able to give resources. And Arizona Caregiver Coalition is one of those that you need to take note of. And if you are that family caregiver, or you know someone that's doing family caregiving, there's respite dollars available to you. So go ahead, Sid.
I was going to ask, so it's a rebate program. So tell me more about how a family goes about finding the person that's providing these services, and how does that work?
Michelle, that's a good question. A lot of people call and ask. You can hire an agency. You can hire Cypress. You can hire an adult day program. Take your loved one to an adult day program like Oakwood or The Perfect Place in Chandler. Or you can hire someone over 18, which maybe be a neighbor or a family member. Now, we suggest if you're hiring someone that is not through an agency, that you vet them properly. All of this is you have to do your due diligence on it. And then you're going to hire these people, and you're going to pay them, and we are going to reimburse you up to $12 per hour for 25 hours, and that'll come to $300.
That's awesome. And, I really appreciate you putting that disclaimer out there, especially if you're going to hire someone privately. And that's something that, Michelle and I, we actually talked about this morning. And, there's a lot of people out there that have made significant wealth, and they've been enormously successful. And Michelle will tell you they spend a lot of money on their homes, and they spend a lot of money on their cars. And when their children are being raised, they spend a lot of money on nannies and caregiving for their children. But for the life of me, I don't understand why they would even think to skimp on the care for their loved one. So important. And, it's one of those buyers beware. If you're going to hire a private caregiver, you're going to hire an independent contractor. Know that there's enormous risk associated, not just with the fact that you haven't thoroughly vetted or background checked this person, but the biggest risk, and Michelle and I deal with this every day, is workers' comp. And, there's something that happens in the bathroom when you mix soapy water and skin. And the bathrooms are where a lot of accidents happen. And if a caregiver were to injure themselves in the home of somebody that they're caring for, if they're a private caregiver or they're a contractor, guess who's liable? The care recipient. And their homeowner's insurance isn't going to cover that. That is one of the single greatest benefits of using an employer-based agency like Cypress, because we spend a lot of money for workers' comp, and we make sure that something like that won't break a family. Besides coordinating the care and making sure the person's trained and making sure that if the caregiver doesn't show up, we got a replacement caregiver, making sure that they are background checked, drug screened, they have first aid, CPR, all the things that go along with that. Have I missed anything, Michelle?
I'm sure there's more.
I'm sure there's more. Well, there's one more segment. We're down 3. We got one more to go. It's hard to believe it. We're talking caregiving here at Health Futures. It's Friday, May 19th. And we are going to take a break. We will be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we're on our fourth segment. We're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park. It is May the 19th, and I've got in the studio Cindy Findley. She's the Executive Director of the Arizona Caregiver Coalition, and I've got Michelle Toft. She's our Director of Memory Care Programming at Cypress Home Care Solutions. And we have brought to you already 3 segments, and if you missed those first 3 segments, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com, click on the media button, drop down to the radio show, and you'll be able to hear those first 3 segments and about 160 others we've been bringing to you for the last 4 years. So, Cindy, when we took a break, I was quickly just spouting off the differences and the benefits of using an employer-based agency versus a contractor and private caregiver. And in my hastily rush, you brought up a very important point, and that is
taxes and labor laws.
Taxes. There are 2 things that we can count on, right? Death and taxes. And I'm going to tell you, labor laws are so important to really take note of. We have had cases, and there are precedented cases. There's one in Chicago that actually is depicted on the Home Care Association of America's website. That's hcaoa.org. And the case is one where a couple was having care from a caregiver for over 7 years, and they became the accidental employer because they were paying that person as a contractor, and that contractor did not pay their taxes. And guess who the Department of Labor came after? This couple who were in their 80s, they were vulnerable, and they thought that contractor was paying their fair share of taxes, and they weren't. So that is something you really need to be cognizant of. So beside the taxes, I go back to the workers' comp piece. That is really important. So if you're looking to hire a caregiver, just be cognizant of whether this is an employer-based caregiver or a private caregiver. Now, if you're going to have a family member do it, I always subscribe, and I think Michelle does too. Family members, that's what they're here for. They're here to help. Now, the respite program that you have is there to help those family members that are making that ultimate sacrifice, those unsung heroes I've been talking about.
Exactly. Let me tell you an example. We've got one family, and the mother has dementia, and she's also a little bit of a hoarder, so she doesn't want anyone in her house. So the caregiver hired her 21-year-old son, who's at ASU, and if he's not studying, he needs to be making money. So he comes over and stays with his grandmother. He makes $12 an hour, and the grandmother's happy because she's getting to pay dominoes with her son. And no one had to clean the house because this was a family caregiver, and everyone knew what it was going to be like. And it works in that situation. It's culturally appropriate.
Oh, absolutely. And that's so important to do. So, it's hard to believe we're on our last segment. I want to go around the room and just make sure we've covered off everything. And I'm looking at you, Michelle. You've been very quiet, and it's so unlike you. But I know Cindy has so much to say about the Arizona Caregiver Coalition and the respite. But I want you to please add your couple cents, and then we'll go back to you, Cindy, and I'll wrap things up here.
Yeah, I know. Unusual for me to be that quiet. It absolutely is. But, in listening to Cindy, I think about all of the families that I work with every day and what a benefit to them to be able to take a break. I'm always talking about getting some time for yourself, finding a way to rejuvenate. If it means having the kids come for a weekend, then have the kids come and stay there for a weekend so you can go away for that weekend. Even if you're just going to the hotel down the street, you don't have to go out of town. You don't have to do anything big. You might want to go, like you said, Cindy, take a nap, read a book, go to a movie, go out to a restaurant, do things you have not been able to do as a caregiver. Part of what I do is not only train our professional caregivers from Cypress, but when families are dealing with dementia, I get to give them one-on-one support as well. So I meet with families. I hear their stories every day of the struggles that they're going through, and they don't know how to approach the person. They don't know how they're going to do it. They feel like more and more is added to them. We talk a lot about the losses that the caregivers experience when they're caring for somebody who has any type of chronic illness. Because it's not just that the person you're caring for doesn't get to go out and do these things anymore, but if they need 24/7 care, now you don't get to do these things. And how important it is to maintain some of your own identity and to be able to maintain your relationship, especially when we're talking about spouses or children, to not be the one who always has to give them a shower, to find somebody else to help with those things, to get that somebody in there so that you can go back to sitting on the couch next to each other and holding hands while you watch a TV show or a movie, where you can go back to putting a puzzle together with mom and not have to always worry about the care.
I like that.
That's my 2 cents, Bob.
Well, it's getting your life back. I mean, and that was more than 2 cents. That was worth a lot. Seriously, take a lot of those comments that Michelle just shared to heart. And, I think one of the things that happens when you are that family caregiver, like you said, if you have a partner, you have to realize that, you're making a sacrifice, and that could have an effect on your relationship. And you have to work that much harder to build that relationship. So I think that's why this respite program is really, really beneficial. Cindy, I want to pivot back to you. Talk a little bit about the respite program. Who do you call? What website do we go to? How much money are we talking about, especially for those that are just tuning in right now?
Thanks, Bob. You can call 888-737-7494 or go to azcaregiver.org and look for respite. The beauty of this program is that it is not income restricted or based on a diagnosis. We are looking to give all of Arizona caregivers respite.
Well, I love that. I really do. I mean, this is something that is so needed in our community. Real tribute to David Bess, who really championed this thing for a number of years, and it's really incredible to have this service available. I want to just wrap up the show. Cypress HomeCare Solutions is an employer-based model. There are many others that are out there that do a very good job in helping and enabling our older adult population to be able to age successfully in place. But at the same time, just be very careful if you're going to hire someone privately or you're going to use a contractor, because the risks will certainly outweigh the reward. And you need some help, but at the same time, don't be penny wise yet pound foolish. Right, Michelle?
Absolutely. There's a reason you were saving your money, and this is it. Exactly.
So any final comments, Cindy? What are you doing this weekend?
I think I'm going to go up north.
There you go.
Here, the weather will be nice.
And you, Michelle?
I don't know yet. Something with the kids, I'm sure. It's always kids and birthday parties and things like that.
Well, I kind of miss that. Mine are all grown up. I just had one graduate from U of A.
Yes.
I've got one that lives in Washington, D.C., and I still got one in college. Listen, ladies, it's been great having you on the show. Cindy, thank you for coming aboard. Michelle, thank you for being my co-pilot. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. We'll be back next Friday.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob.